everybody, this is Crystal. So today I'm going to show you how to make this lady's top right here. Now it is easy to adjust to any size body because I'm going to show you how to do it by the measurement of your waist. So you can adjust it to fit a child or to a larger adult. Now it is made with two panels that are sewed together. So they're sewed together here at the shoulders, and then you have your neck opening. You have your sleeve opening, and then it's sewed together at each side. And I chose to leave about 3 inches on each side unsewn to adjust for my hips, to go around my hips. I think if I would have sewed it all the way, it would have been kind of tight on my hips. But you know, you can sew it all the way up. Now, I will tell you, I'm not going to give you, there's no stitch, I'm not going to be giving you stitch counts. It's kind of only measurements. So, you've seen how it looks on me, where it all reaches on me. I am 5'3". That's barely. So you can make it as long or as short as you want. But remember, in those photos you see, I am a 5'3", and usually on a shirt of this style, I would wear a medium. So if that would help you out any as the way it looks on me. Okay, let's go ahead and get started. Okay, let me measure it for you real quick. Now, I don't feel comfortable giving you my waist measurements, and that's fine. I'm just going to tell you how big my piece is. So I told you I was about 5'3", so mine's from the neckline to the bottom, it's about 23 inches, okay? Now from the shoulders to the bottom is about 25.5. So you can go by that. Width wise, I'll give you the width is about 17 inches. And that's with it all sewn up. So that's how the measurements of mine, that's what it looks like. So for this project, I used Lion Brand watercolors, which is a bulky number 5. Now it is a thick bulky number 5. You do not have to use this yarn. Now if you don't use a thicker bulky 5 like I did, the stitches might not have that. You see how some of them kind of pop up. If you choose to use a regular, you know, thinner bulky 5 or even a 4-weight, it might lay flat, more flat, and that's fine. That's perfectly fine. I mean, it's not really a see-through stitch that much, maybe a bit, but I wasn't wearing a shirt underneath mine in the picture. I only had my bra on. So that would be the only difference as far as looks. The reason why the stitches are kind of popping out at a 3D effect is because the yarn is thicker. So the color I used is called Wild Pansy, and for my size I used about 5 cakes at 164 yards each. Of course, if you make it bigger, you'll need more. Now, like I mentioned, you can use a 4-weight. You just would need to chain to your desired amount. Okay, so, and then I'm going to be using a size N, which is a 9mm. Some N's are 10mm. Either one of those would work. And that is what I used with this thick, bulky 5. If you're going to use like a 4-weight, I would recommend using like a 6.5mm. Okay, I also would recommend maybe using, if you can find some type of yarn that maybe has a little bit of stretch to it, you know, that might work out, because it is a little bed of a form-fitting shirt. Okay, so measurements. What we're going to do, since it's done in 2 panels, it'll have to be, you'll take your measurement of your waist and you'll divide it by half. So we'll do a pretend measurement here. Say you have a 30-inch waist. Then you would want to chain a chain of about 15 inches or 15.5 inches. I'd probably do the 15.5 just to give you some room for sewing. Say you have pick a waist. Say you have 52-inch waist, then you'd want to do 26.5-inch chain. Now make sure your chain is pulled tight. When you make your chain, you pull it tight and measure it, and you want to make it half of your waist measurement, and then add another 1/2 inch to it. Okay, that's how you do your measurements. You want to make it for a child waist, I don't know how big, say 20-inch waist, make a 10.5-inch chain, and then you make 2 panels the same, which will come out to 1 inch over your waist, but that'll take account for any sewing that shrinks it up or whatever or whatnot. So anyways, that's how you take the measurements. So you can do that with any size yarn you want. Remember, it doesn't have to be the yarn that I used. Okay, so once you got your starting chain of a multiple of 5 plus 2, now we're going to start the stitch. So row 1, we are going to do a single crochet in the second stitch from the hook. Now remember, we do not count the one that's on our hook. So we go into, not this first one, but the second one, and single crochet. And now we will, after that single crochet, we're going to start the repeat of the row. We're going to chain 3. 1, 2, 3. Now we're going to do a double crochet of 4 together over the next 4 stitches. So we are going to yarn over, go into the next stitch, and draw up a loop, and yarn over and go through the first 2 loops on my hook. I want to do that 4 times over 4 stitches. So that was my first one. I'm going to do it again. I'm going to, in the next stitch, I'm going to yarn over, go into the next stitch, draw up a loop, yarn over, and go through the first 2 loops. So that was 2 times. Yarn over and go into the next stitch, draw up a loop, yarn over and go through the first 2 loops on my hook. That's 3 times. One more time. Yarn over, go into the next stitch, draw up a loop, yarn over and go through the first 2 loops on my hook. I will have 5 loops that remain. Yarn over and go through all 5 loops. I always give it a little tug, chain 1 to lock it into place. Now I'm going to put a single crochet directly into the next stitch, just like that, and that will end the repeat of this row. So we will start again by chaining 3. 1, 2, 3. Now we're going to do our double crochet 4 together over the next 4 stitches. So yarn over, go into the next stitch, draw up a loop, and yarn over and go through the first 2. Again, go and yarn over, go into the next stitch, draw up a loop, yarn over and go into, yarn over and draw through the next 2 loops. Again, yarn over, go into the next stitch, draw up a loop, yarn over, go through the first 2 loops. One more time, yarn over, go into the next stitch, draw up a loop, yarn over and go to the first 2. 5 loops will remain. Yarn over and go through all 5. Tug it, give it a little tug, and then you chain 1 to lock it into place, and then we're going to single crochet directly into the next stitch. And this is the repeat. I'm going to repeat all the way across to the end of the row. I'll do it one more time. We're going to chain 3. 1, 2, 3. We're going to do our double crochet 4 together over the next 4 stitches. So we will yarn over, go into the next stitch, draw up a loop, yarn over, go through the first 2 loops. Again, yarn over, go into the next stitch, draw up a loop, yarn over and go through the first 2 loops. Yarn over, go into the next stitch, draw up a loop, yarn over and go through the first 2 loops. One last time. Yarn over, go into the next stitch, draw up a loop, yarn over and go through the first 2 loops. So I did that over 4 stitches. I have 5 loops that remain. Yarn over and go through all 5 loops, and chain 1 to lock it into place, and then single crochet directly into the next stitch. And then you start again by chaining 3, And I'm going to repeat this pattern until I get to the end of the row. All right, I have come to the end, and you should have enough stitches to equally complete a repeat. So I just did my double crochet 4 together, and I will chain 1 to lock it, and then I have 1 stitch left, which I will single crochet in, and that would end the repeat that we were doing. And that is row 1. Now rows 2 and 3 are the repeat rows for this pattern. It's not hard a pattern at all. It's actually really pretty easy. The pattern itself is. So we're going to start off row 2 by chaining 5. 1, 2, 3, 4, and then 5, and then we're going to turn our work. Okay, we're going to start off by putting a single crochet into the first cluster stitch here. So when you turn it over and look at it at the right side, I like to put my single crochet right in this little small spot. So turn it back around. Right there. Go ahead and put a single crochet. Just like that. So now we're going to start the repeat of row 2. We're going to start by chaining 3. 1, 2, 3, and now we're in this chain 3 space here. We're going to do a double crochet 4 together, all together into this chain space. So what we're going to do the same thing we did down here, except we're just going to put it all into the chain space. So we're going to yarn over, go through that chain space, and draw up a loop, and yarn over and go through the first 2 loops. Again, we want to do that 4 times. That was number 1. Again, yarn over, go through the chain space, draw up a loop, yarn over, go through the first 2 loops, yarn over, go through the chain space, draw up a loop, yarn over, go through the first 2 loops. There's 3 times. One more time, yarn over, go through the chain space, draw up a loop, yarn over and go through the first 2. 5 loops remain, yarn over and go through all 5, tug it, chain 1 to lock like that. And then we are going to put a single crochet into the next cluster right over here. So here's the single crochet from the previous row. I kind of like to go in this little bitty spot here. And single crochet. And that'll end the repeat. So let's go ahead and do it again. We'll start by chaining 3. 1, 2, 3. Jump over here to this chain 3 space, and we're going to do our double crochet 4 together cluster. So we're going to yarn over, go into the chain space, draw up our loop, and yarn over and go through the first 2 loops. Remember, we need to do that 4 times, so that was number 1. There's 2 times, 3 times, 4 times, 5 loops remain, yarn over and go through all 5 loops, chain 1 to lock it, and then we're going to skip the single crochet here and single crochet directly into the next cluster. I like to go in this little spot here. Some people go here. I like to go in this little tight area. Either one would work, but I go in that little tight spot. Now, this is a pattern I'm going to repeat until we get to the end of the row. Again, I will chain 3. So it's very similar to what we did before. And in the next chain 3 space, I'm going to do a double crochet 4 together cluster. Five loops remain, yarn over, go through all 5, chain 1, and single crochet into the next cluster. So you skip this single crochet, and right here in this next little spot, let's single crochet into that. And then we repeat again by starting with our chain 3. So we're going to go ahead and repeat this pattern until we get to the end of the row. All right, I'm coming to the end of row 2. I just finished a repeat, so I'm going to go ahead. You see I have one last chain space left. So I'm going to go ahead and do another one. I'm going to chain 3 because I just single crocheted there into that last double crochet cluster. Now I'm going to do a double crochet cluster into this chain space. And I'm going to chain 1 to lock it, and then I'm going to end the round by double crocheting right down here into this single crochet. Try to get to both loops of it if I can. There we go. So double crochet into that last stitch, and that will end row 2. And that's what it starts to look like. It's actually pretty cool with that yarn. Alright, so now we will start row 3. We are going to chain 1 and turn our work. We are going to single crochet into the first stitch. So right here on top of this double crochet, we're going to put a single crochet. And then we're going to single crochet into the next cluster. So here's the cluster. Remember, I like to go right there into that little bitty space. So right into that single crochet. Now we're going to start the repeat of the row by chaining 3. And into this chain space, we're going to work a cluster again. So right into this chain space, we'll work our double crochet 4 together cluster. Chain 1 to lock it. And then we will skip the single crochet here and single crochet into the next cluster. So this tiny little space here, put a single crochet, and that's the repeat for row 3. Again, we're going to chain 3, and in the next chain 3 space we will do our double crochet 4 together cluster. Chain 1 to lock and single crochet into the next cluster. So here's a single crochet from the previous round. I go onto this little spot here like that, and then we're going to repeat again by chaining 3. So I'm going to keep going until I get to the end of row 3. Alright, I have made it to the end here. I just did my last double crochet cluster here in my last chain 3 space. Now I'm going to chain 1 to lock, and I'm going to end my row by just doing a single crochet in this chain 5 here at the end. So I'm just going to go right through it and single crochet, and that will end row 3. So that's all it is now, is a repeat of rows 2 and 3. It's cool how this yarn's made it pop out like that. I don't know for certain if it would do that with a 4-weight or not, or a 3-weight, but that's interesting. So now what we're going to do is we're going to repeat rows 2 and 3 until we get the top or the vest as long as we want it to be. So I'm going to continue going. I'll put timestamps for rows 2 and 3 in the comment section. Look for those there. And then I'll let you know how many total rows I do for my top. Okay, so you want to make your piece as long as you want to make it. Make sure you stop on an odd number of rows. So my length of mine right now is 23 inches. Remember, longer, shorter, it's completely up to you. But you make sure that you stop on an odd number of rows. Now I'm going to do a little bit at the top here. So I'm going to do 2 more rows, but they're not going to be complete rows. They're going to form the neckline. So you stopped at an odd number. You got your piece as long as you want it to be. Let's go ahead and chain 1 and then turn our work. Move my camera down a little bit so you can see better. Sorry about that. And I want to acknowledge, I know that my fingernails are stained. I dyed yarn, so I apologize if they are grossing you out. But anyways, chain 1 and turn. Go into the first stitch as usual. Single crochet. Go into this little spot of the cluster as usual. And single crochet. Now this is going to be different for depending on what size that you want to do. But we'll go ahead and repeat our pattern. So we chain 3. And go ahead and work our cluster into the next chain 3 space. So we're kind of just repeating our pattern. Chain 1. And then single crochet into the next cluster. Chain 3, and in the next chain 3 space I am going to work a cluster, like that. Chain 1. Now this is where it will be different. I did 2 clusters, and I'm not going to do any more. That is the area that's going to be on my shoulders. Now, if you made your piece wider, you're going to need to go over a few more rows until it fits across your shoulders. But you want to make sure you leave a neckline. So, my piece, I am going to use 2 clusters for the shoulder on each side. I will have 2 clusters, and then my neckline will be 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 clusters. So you want to leave your neckline for any size between 5 and 6 clusters, something like that. So however many, and make sure you do both sides equal. So I'm leaving 2 clusters on this side and 2 clusters on this side to make my shoulder. So make sure you have the same amount of clusters on both sides for your shoulder area. And then your neckline can be, you know, somewhere in between 5 and 6 clusters, you know, would work for any size. So I'm going to end because I just did 2 clusters there. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to single crochet into this next cluster. Now, if you're making it bigger, you continue across if you want to do 3 clusters or 4 clusters. It depends on how big, you know, your shoulder area is. Now I'm going to do it again. I'm going to go across this one more time. So what I'm going to do now is I'm going to do a chain of 3 and turn my work. And I'm just going to continue the pattern we've been doing. So I'm going to go into this next chain 3 space and work a cluster. So there's 1. And then single crochet into my next cluster there, like normal. Chain 3. Cluster into my next single crochet. Chain 1, and then I'm going to end the round by double crocheting into my first single crochet, and that will be that. Okay, now you can tie that off. Now what you need to do is turn it back around to the very front again, to where we started. And now I'm going to come over here to, I have my 2 clusters here for the neckline. You can see I need to do the same thing over here, but it'll be done just a little bit differently. So here's my 2 clusters. If you're doing 3 or 4 over, that's fine. You start in the chain 1 or the cluster space of however far many clusters you're going. So since I did 2 on the other side, I'm going to do 2 here. So here's 1, here's 2. I want to start my yarn in that place that we always put our single crochet, like that. And I'm going to chain 1. Now I'm going to single crochet back into that spot. Now remember, depending on how many clusters you're doing for each of your shoulder piece, it's basically the same, you just do more clusters. Then I'm going to chain 3 and do my cluster into this next chain 3 space. And do my single crochet into this next cluster, chain 3, cluster into my next chain 3 space. So as you can see, it's just the same pattern. Just make sure you leave 5 or 6 clusters there in the center for your neckline. Now right here, I'm going to go ahead and end by single crocheting right here in this chain 5 space, like always. Now what I'm going to do, one more row across, I'm going, instead of chaining 5, I'm only going to chain 3 this time and turn my work. And then I will single crochet like always into the very first cluster, and I will chain 3. So the only difference there was I chained 3 in the beginning instead of 5, and now I'm going to work my same pattern. I'm going to work my cluster into my next chain 3 space, single crochet into my next cluster, chain 3, cluster into my next chain 3 space, and then I will chain 1 to lock it. Now I'm going to end by slip stitching into this single crochet right here. I'm sorry, I'm going to end by single crocheting into the top of the single crochet. I apologize. Like that. And that will end that side, and you can tie that yarn off, and we'll see what we got as far as the neckline goes. Okay, so when you look at mine, you can see that I have 2 clusters for each of my arm areas, and I got 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 open for the neckline. Now what you want to do is make 2 pieces the exact same. So let me get you another quick measurement. I measured it before I put my neck or my shoulder area on. With the shoulder area on, it's about 25.5 stitches, so something like that. So remember, now we need to make 2 pieces the exact same, which I have already previously done. And now we're going to sew them together and make a top. Okay, so you want to lay your pieces together to where both sides are the same. If there's a side that you like better, put it right side up, because we will be crocheting and then or sewing it together and then flipping it right side out. So Okay, I'm going to use a yarn needle. Now, first things first, I think I'm going to sew up my top here, or my shoulders. If you have long tails left over, you can use those to sew your top together. If not, you can load up your yarn needle with a piece of this yarn and sew it together. If there's another method you know of sewing, that's fine too. So all we're going to do is make sure do our best to keep it lined up straight. That's really all you can do, and just go through it and sew it together. Now I'm not going to be working over. I'm going to be working back and forth across the top and doing my best just to, you know, the stitches won't line up because the stitches are different because they're opposite sides. Well, mine are anyways, but I said you could do it however you wanted. As long as it gets sewed where it's not going to come undone, I say it's a successful top. So I have 2 clusters to sew over from my arm. And then we'll sew down the sides. Now, when you get to the part that goes down a bit, sew that about halfway, if that makes sense. There we go. There we go. Now you can see my neck opening there for one side. I want to do the same on the other, so you're not supposed to do this in the eyes of crochet, but I'm gonna tie a couple little knots here because this is gonna be the inside of my work, so it doesn't come undone, and then I will sew those tails in. Now I just want to move over here to the next side and do the same thing. So I got a long tail hanging here. I'll use it as my string or my yarn to sew up the top. Remember, you might have more to sew if you did more than 2 clusters across. You know, if you did yours wider than mine, you might have a lot more to sew than me. But all I can say is we just do our best to get this sewed up. The stitches don't match, that's fine. They're not gonna match. It's just the way it is. And we just sew it neatly back and forth till she's all sewed up. Not gonna come undone. And I'm about to the end of this side. Let me check out my arm space there. It's pretty good, pretty close to the same as the other side. Yep, looks good. Now I'm at the end here. Again, I'm going to tie a little knot here. Let's keep that between me and you, because you know knots aren't good in crochet. Supposedly. I don't know. They've never done me wrong. I've used them a long time. And then you just hide these tails up here that remain. Kind of weave them in the top. Remember, this is going to be flipped inside out, so it doesn't have to be perfect. Just get them hidden. And then all that. And now we need to sew down the sides. Now, this is another spot that will be different depending on the size that you made, is your armhole. My suggestion would be to try this on right now, since the top is sewed up, and you mark off where you want to put your armhole. Whether it be 4 inches, 5 inches, 6 inches, 7 inches, depending how low down you want your armhole to be. Maybe you're going to wear a shirt under it and you want your armhole to be really low so your shirt shows. Maybe you don't want to wear anything under it and you just want a normal size armhole. That is completely up to you. But once you figure out where you want your armhole, mark it, and you mark the same spot on the other side. That way it's the same size. Okay, I tried mine on and I decided to make an armhole that is approximately 6 inches. So right here I will mark. I'm just going to put a stitch marker through these so I know that's where my armhole is going to be. If you do, you know, bigger size, if your arms are a little thicker, or like I said, you want it to be longer, wherever you want your armhole to be, that's where you make it. And make sure you do it the same on the other side. Now, as far as sewing it up, you just load up your hook, and we sew it together the same way we did the top. It's pretty easy. Okay, I'm going to leave this open for my armhole. So I'm just going to go down and try to keep it lined up the best I can. But they are on opposite sides, so they won't line up perfect. But every once in a while, you stop sewing and take a look and make sure. Oops, that was supposed to go over. Oh well. Make sure it's lining up to where you're going to be equal at the bottom. I'm going to leave about 3 inches of my bottom unsewed. About like that. That's your preference. If you want to do that, you can leave more, you can leave less, or you can sew it all the way up. It's your shirt, not mine. You make it to fit your body and to your likings. So I want it to be about 3 inches of it opened on both sides at the bottom. You may not want that, and that is completely fine. So I'm just going to continue sewing back and forth like this until I get about 3 inches at the bottom left, and then I'll tie off. And then I will mark my space on the other side for my armhole, and the exact same size, and sew it up on the other side up, and I'll leave 3 inches at the bottom on that. Like I said, as long as it gets sewed up to where it's not going to come undone, that's all that really matters. And you're going to try to sew it as neatly as possible. So I'm going to keep working. I'm going to get this side sewed up down to 3 inches, and then I'm going to mark off my other side, like I said, with my armhole, the exact same place as this one, and sew it sew it down to 3 inches, and then I'm going to hide all my tails, and then we'll see what we need to do next. Okay, I got both my sides sewed up, and now I'm going to flip it inside out, or actually right side out, and there it is. I still got some tails to sew in, but finished it is. It doesn't look too dang bad for a quick summer top, because it didn't take very long to make. I like it. Now, one thing that you can do is, if you want, you can go around the top with single crochet. I kind of like the looks of the chain, so I'm going to leave it. You can go around the bottom you want and clean up the edging. I kind of like the way it looks with the shell sticking out. But, you know, that's just things you can do. You can go around the edge with single crochet, clean it up. Again, I'll probably just leave mine. My yarn is so busy that me going around the edges is probably not even going to make too much of a noticeable difference. But I'm going to hide some tails, and then my top is complete. I hope you enjoyed my video. I hope that you were able to follow along. If you make this, show me a picture on my Instagram. I'm going to put a link to my Instagram in the comment section and to my description box. Follow me. Tag me in all your crochet work. It doesn't just have to be mine. Show me all your crochet work. Hashtag Bagoday Crochet. I love to see it. And until next time, don't forget to give this video a thumbs up. Don't forget to hit subscribe so you don't miss any of my videos. And until next time, have a good day and please stay safe.